Let me tell you how to stick it. So it's there.
Hello? Can you hear me though?
Yep, Jim, how you doing?
Good. Trying to get you on my headphones.
Yeah, we have a little bit of background noise with your setting there. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum in place, and I'll read the preamble pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. This Hopkinton Conservation Commission meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting via virtual means. Participants may access the meeting through the remote meeting link as posted on the meeting agenda and through the town's online calendar. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by raising their hand or otherwise signaling their intent to speak. This meeting is being recorded. Please take care to mute your microphone unless you have been recognized by the chair. We will now confirm attendance of members and staff. Please respond with present if you are on the call. Melissa?
Present.
Janine?
Present.
Ted?
Present.
Ed? Jim? Ed's not joining us, sorry. Jim? And Jim is with us. He's on mute. Kim?
Present.
Anna?
Present.
And Joe with Lucas Environmental?
Present.
All right. Okay. We're just letting people into the meeting. Jim, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Okay. Let's jump into the work session items. We have documents for review. Hughes 47 Stony Brook Road. It's a 1-year extension of the order of conditions. Kim, did you want to just give us a little bit of background on this?
Sure. This is one that we had considered a few meetings back. The applicant took all of those orders and decided to build one single family home. And they're substantial compliance. The house is built, but the yard was loose, unsecured soil. So we've been working with the applicant to resolve that. And so I feel like at this point it's appropriate to issue these extension permits. Unfortunately, we do have 3 DEP file numbers associated with what is actually one site. So a little bit more paperwork than usual, but still relatively straightforward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kim. If I can get a motion to approve the 1-year extension for 47 Stony Brook and to have Kim sign on the members present.
I'll make that motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
All right, Melissa.
Aye.
Janine.
Aye.
Ted.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, great. Thank you. So the draft minutes, we're going to push those to our next meeting, which takes us to Brendan Properties, 22 Saddle Hill Road. This is a request for the certificate of compliance. So Kim, did you want to give us, I think there were some issues with the PIB markers at this property.
Sure. So this is the construction of a single family home on Saddle Hill Road. I'm trying to see if I can find the site plan. There it is. So this is one that Lucas Environmental had originally gone out and done their initial review last summer. And the outstanding issues from last summer, or areas of concern rather, were that the way that this was permitted was that there is a PIB, and then there's also a wildflower area that's kind of on the opposite side of these pheno markers, but within the PIB. And that wildflower area was not well established last year. And the pheno markers were not as visible as I think the Concom would have liked. So I re-inspected a few weeks ago now, and I did find that the wildflower area was substantially established, generally to my satisfaction. It's definitely not being mowed. The pheno markers kind of remain as they are. So basically they're flush with the ground, and then there's a fiberglass rod that's installed to kind of better show the limits. Here's the PIB and then the pheno marker you can see in the same shot.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to look at the order, and the order of conditions does specify pheno markers in front of the actual PIB. So this is in compliance with the way that the order is written. I think at this point I would recommend a close just because we are in compliance with the way that the order is written, but perhaps, this is a little bit of a lesson to kind of write the orders differently moving forward. I think we probably would have better compliance if there is a change of ownership of this property, if the PIB was in front of the meadow area.
Yeah.
So it was one of those live and learn.
Yep. No, that makes sense, Kim. But, again, as you said, this is in compliance with the order. So is there a motion to issue the COC and to have Kim sign it on behalf of the members present, please?
So moved.
And actually, I'm sorry if I can just back up a second before we get a second. Are there any comments from commission members or questions? Okay, so is there a second, please?
Second.
And we'll do the roll call votes. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see, 7:07, so we got a few more minutes before we move to the regular agenda. So Capital Group Properties, Deerfield Estates, this is another request for a certificate of compliance, Kim.
Yep, just pull up some plans and photos for you. So this is a condominium, 55 plus condominium development. The original permit was 2003. And the COC was not obtained. So it's a little bit of a delay here. Lucas Environmental did a review back in 2021. Capital Group Properties is the developer here, and they responded to Lucas's comments in 2022. Lucas provided a second review in 2022, and we're kind of picking up from there. There's a few outstanding items from these kind of back and forth between Lucas and Capital Group Properties. So I can run you through those briefly. The first one was PIBs in proximity to a vernal pool buffer zone behind condo units that are located approximately here. You can see the vernal pool is here. So I went out and did an inspection yesterday. So as of yesterday, the applicant has installed, continued a white rail fencing that acts as the PIB, which in my opinion is adequate as a PIB. The fencing also has signage on it that says vernal pool buffer, protected vernal pool buffer area. And I can pull up some of those photos. One of Lucas's other comments was that erosion controls remain in the field. So those have subsequently been removed. The next item is yearly operations and maintenance reports are required as part of this subdivision. So in the files, we have those reports up to 2021. 2021 is the year that Capital Group Properties turned management of this parcel over to the HOA, as far as I understand. And the HOA was unaware that they needed to follow this requirement. So we do not have reports for 2022 or 2023. They have now been informed of the requirement to do the inspections and complete the maintenance. So I understand that I should be anticipating a report for 2023. I will say that the BMPs that I have seen out there look like they need a little bit of maintenance. The next item is there was a trail permitted as part of this development. You can see it here. I highlighted it in yellow. This trail was never constructed. And at this point, it's the opinion of the HOA that they would not like to have it constructed. It is contained within the development parcel. It's not, as far as I understand, it's not connecting to any other, or wasn't, providing a connecting segment to any other trails around town. And the last item is that some of the homeowners appear to have constructed after the fact roof drains that connect into the stormwater BMPs. And per our order of conditions, those roof drains were supposed to go to dry wells. So that's kind of the 1,000-foot overview. I pass it back to you, Jeff, and the commission to consider, how you feel about the trail and the dry well concerns.
Yep, thank you, Kim. So there's a bond currently still out there for the site, correct, Kim? And they're looking to have that released, Capital Group.
Yeah, that is correct. So there's a bond on file with Planning Board. Usually the Planning Board reaches out to me as a courtesy to say, hey, is there substantial compliance on the conservation end? We should either issue the COC or make a recommendation to the Planning Board to that effect as well. We don't have to do that in an official capacity, but it's usually something that I do kind of behind the scenes. So something to consider. I think that's why, after these 20 years, the applicant is looking to get this off their books and really wanted to get the COC closed out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, my sense, I'll open it up to the other commission members. I think we want to see the stormwater BMPs maintained. For sure the 2022 and 2023 reports need to be submitted. If the HOA decided that they didn't want the trail at the property, I guess I'm okay with that. But let me, and then the roof runoff, Kim, if we can, I think we talked about this, if we can let them know that, that's not appropriate. It should be in a dry, it should be in a well or, or some other, some other, kind of, infrastructure, I guess would be, a curtain around the foundation or something to that effect, right? Stone curtain or.
I have a quick question. Do we know if the dry wells were installed and they're just not connected, or?
Yeah, good question, Melissa. I'll defer to Kim on that.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can follow up on that. Yeah.
Justin here with the Capital Group. So the dry well, the downspouts that aren't in the dry wells are gutters that the homeowners seem to have added after the fact from moving in. So per the plans, all the dry wells are in and the gutters are tied into them. These are additional gutters that have been added over the last, I don't know how many years it's been. I wasn't involved with the project at the beginning.
Okay.
So Justin, do you know why they weren't tied into the wells?
No, I No, I just think that when they were built, they just did gutters over like overhangs and entries and as needed. And over the years, some of the owners have done complete gutter systems on like the entire roof of the house to prevent any water from coming off of them.
Okay,
So obviously by doing that, there's not proper stub ups to underground drainage.
right.
I guess my comment on that, Jeff, would be wondering where I think they should probably be looked at and addressed in the nature of infiltration, and if there's currently discharging them to like the driveway and they're getting into the roadway, like we don't want that. If they have something else like a drip edge or they're going into, a grass area, it kind of be case by case. So like you said, I think we probably want them to address the downspouts to be infiltrating.
It's not gonna run dry now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, Kim, and excuse me, Melissa. So, I'm wondering, so what's the best way to kind of handle this? Should we have Kim or Anna reach out to the homeowners, let them know we don't want discharges to pavement and impervious areas? Do we want to kind of hold up the COC until, either Capital Group or the new owner?
I think I'd say we'd want them to meet the conditions of approval. If they want to propose something else, they should come and present that revision, maybe, before we sign off on it. No, I think the BMPs need to be maintained and before we can sign off on it too.
Yeah, I
don't think we need, I don't think going back and doing reports from 2022 and 2023 are going to necessarily be needed or relevant. I think just getting the ones cleaned up and in good working order in order for us to sign off, and then making sure that they submit them going forward.
Okay.
The trail, I think, is a planning board issue.
Mm-hmm.
My
Other
thoughts.
comments, questions from commission members?
I agree with Melissa that I think the BMPs need to be cleaned up before we would close it out.
Okay, thank you, Janine. Okay. So I guess the other, question I'll put to the commission members, are you okay with Kim letting the planning board know that they can release the bond, but we'll hold up the COC until the BMP and stormwater systems are maintained? Does that sound okay to everyone?
I think if the bond specifically identifies some of these stormwater things, then they should release the stormwater items from the bond.
Okay. Kim, do you know the specifics of the bond? Was it?
I don't. I do believe they typically sometimes talk about the stormwater infrastructure. I would need to check with John, so I can follow up on that.
Okay. Well, at any rate, if we hold back on the release of the bond, that'll give them a little bit more encouragement to get the these kind of final things buttoned up for us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from commission members or the audience? Okay. Kim,
I would say, just so we're on the same page, what exactly are you looking for us to get?
So I think we're looking for the BMPs to be maintained.
Yeah,
There's some kind of maintenance type items that need to be taken care of. Notification to the homeowners who have put in kind of the drainage systems that, they can't be running off to impervious areas.
okay.
I think the trail, we're good with, if the HOA decided that they don't want that, I think we're good with that. And then I would say the 2022 maintenance report, we probably don't need, but for 2023, I think we do want that, right, Kim? Since we're in 2023.
Yeah, I don't think they had, so we turned this over after 21. So the new management company, I don't even think they did it for 22.
Yeah, so I think to Melissa's point, it's kind of irrelevant at this point, but if we can get one
Yeah.
for 2023, that would be good. If you can work with them to get that submitted to the commission.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
On the drainage and the runoff, I mean, we can send out like a notice to them. I don't know, how responsive they're gonna be, or especially where we don't manage it. And even if they were to do something to turn that around, I don't know if there's anything stopping them from just doing it again. So I don't
Yeah, I think if we
know
can,
how far we can take that really.
yeah, if we can submit, if you can submit a notice to the homeowners, I guess that's what we're asking for, Kim. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best we can do is encourage.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. We can get a notice out. I just want to make sure you weren't looking for us to go over there and start pulling gutters off.
No, nope.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right, thank you, Mr. DePietri.
Yep.
Okay, Kim, are we good with this one?
I think we're good.
All right. Okay, let's move on to the new hearings. We'll start with 4 Tiffany Trail. This is a request for determination of applicability for geothermal wells. Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 at 7 o'clock, virtually online, to hear all persons interested in the request for determination of applicability filed by Dandelion Energy to install geothermal wells with associated site work. The location is 4 Tiffany Trail, Assessors Map R16, Block 49, Lot 0. All right, we have, good evening.
I'm Hannah Kowalski. I'm with Dandelion Energy. I'll give you just a little bit of background on geothermal in general, and then we can get into the project specifics.
Okay.
So geothermal energy basically uses the heat of the earth to warm and cool your house instead of having an AC unit or an oil or gas powered furnace. This works basically because the earth is around 55 degrees all year round. In the winter, we can take the cold air in your home, do a heat exchange with the heat in the ground, and warm your house. Basically, we have our geothermal furnace, which has a fluid loop. The fluid loop goes into the earth, gets to be around 55 degrees, and then comes back up into your home. From there, we take the 55-degree air, compress it to make the heat rise to 84 or whatever you need for your house, and then blow that air through the forced air system that's already installed. In the summer, it works the opposite way. So we do a heat exchange. We take the warm air from your house, put the heat in that loop. The loop goes down, gets cooled to 54 degrees, and then we bring that cool water back into your house. The loop itself is a fused loop. So we drill to around 300 feet. We install, again, a fused loop. We then grout around the loop so that even if the fuse or seal breaks on the loop itself, there's a pillar of grout so that that fluid can't interface with the local groundwater. And after we install the loop, we do a pressure test to make sure it can withstand, the pressure of our fluid. The
Mhm.
fluid itself is a combination of just regular drinking water and food grade antifreeze. It's around 25% the antifreeze and 75% just local water. Once we top off the system, there's no additional tanks that holds additional water. We get it to the pressure we need it, and then we seal it. We install expansion tanks, so if something were to happen, the fluid's just not going to pop open any of the fused loops. But there's no continual refreshing of that table. So if something were to happen, worst case scenario, something hits the line going from the trench, from the well to the house in that shallow trench, we get a notification on our end. We can shut down the system and prevent additional water and fluid from cycling in and out. So that's generally how it goes. For this specific project, we are proposing drilling the bores in the existing driveway, having the shallow trench go up to the house, exit the ground, and then enter the house along the vertical side of the property. We have a proposed silt fence line basically on the edge of the driveway there to prevent any soil or drill cuttings, slurry, etc., from getting into the wetland area itself. And if you don't mind me sharing my screen, you can also go to page 32 of that packet. You can see an example of the drill rig that we tend to use for this sort of project. This one in particular is a Kamakio drill rig. We have a diverter right at the mouth of the borehole. So for most soil drilling, either for environmental purposes or groundwater drilling, the slurry, mud, water, etc., would be coming out of that hole and kind of making a pile around the drill rig. We use the Kamakio rig, which has a diverter that pushes the slurry, drilling cuttings, etc., into a tube and then into a solid dumpster on the property. That dumpster we can then pull off of the site. So it provides an additional layer. We'll obviously have that silt fence near the that boundary between the driveway and the wetlands, but there's not going to be a big pile of slush on the property. It'll go to this dumpster, which we then can remove. I think I mentioned this in the description itself. The only other thing we may request is if the water level gets to be too high in the dumpster, we would put in a water pump and pump just the clean water, leave all the settlings on the bottom, pump that into a silt bag on the front of the property and allow that to naturally drain. The silt bag will keep all of the fines in, we'll put on the front of the property so it's the furthest away from the wetlands as we can have it. But that way we also aren't having a big sloppy dumpster of water and mud that we got to move in and off of the property.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, no, sorry, go ahead, if you still,
No, I was just going to address the comments from Lucas, but if you have any questions about anything so far, please let me know.
Nope, that sounds good. So why don't we just have Joe kind of go through what your comments were, and then we can have Mrs. Kulowski respond.
Sounds good.
Sure. So I did take a look at the site. I checked the delineation. I had a few recommendations on some changes in the delineation. I think the only one that would potentially impact the buffer zone where they're proposing any work would be at flag number 11, where I thought it should be moved about 6 feet up gradient. Their submittal notes that their work is as close as 24 feet from the wetland, so that would make potentially the work as close as 18 feet. Also noted that the application indicated that in places that the work was within riverfront area. And based on what I've looked at as far as the stream stats, GIS or USGS mapping, the stream is intermittent, not perennial. So I don't believe there is any riverfront area on the property.
Okay.
The application does not include any PIB locations. And don't know if the commission wants to discuss those being added. The plan is not to scale, which makes it a little difficult to judge distances. It's more of a general sketch. Also, I noted that there's a new DEP Form 1, which DEP is recommending applicants use rather than the old form.
Mhm.
And as far as the erosion, proposed erosion controls, I think the system that is proposed is good. There's also, I believe, a need for a silt fence because there will be a trench excavated at the back of the property for a pipe connection. And I think that pretty much covers my comments.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So the 4 boreholes and then the manifold are all in the driveway area, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So my sense is, the plan might not be to scale, but, as long as that's noted on the plan, I think I'm good with that. But let me open up to questions, comments from the other commission members.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that, Jim?
No comments or questions.
Okay. Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes, Kim.
I would just recommend here that we have a special condition for a negative RDA for the drill rig diverter, and also before at the pre-con a written dewatering plan.
Yep. No, that makes sense. So they did. So yeah, I think that makes sense having that as the special condition. And I know Mrs. Kowalski did say that they were planning on using the diverter, so that's great. But let's memorialize that anyways. And then, sorry about this. I guess the final question was the PIBs. Kim, do we need to have those? Does the commission want to have those installed, related to this project, or is that not really a concern, do you think?
I think it's been a standard practice for us to establish PIBs wherever possible.
I can certainly add it. I am working with our designers to get a more up-to-date to-scale drawing with the new wetlands flaggings with the edits for Lucas, just so that our guys in the field know where the wetlands is. I can certainly have them add that to the figure if you would like.
Yeah, that would be helpful. We typically have them installed every 25 or 30 feet along the resource area boundary. So Kim can help you, identify the appropriate locations for that, or Joe. And then they can also, direct you as to, what type of PIBs we like to see. Kim, does that make sense?
It does make sense, except for we usually establish the PIBs an offset from the boundary of the BBW. So in looking at this photo, just looking at the vegetation, and I think that's probably LEC's flag. We're probably looking at 10 to 20 feet between. So I'm assuming that the commission would want the PIB at the established edge of the lawn. It's probably going to be the spot here.
Right. Yep.
Perfect. I will send that over to our design team.
Okay. Are there questions or comments from the public? And if so, just go ahead and let us know. Okay. Doesn't look like it. So if we can get a motion to continue this hearing until August 8th to kind of wrap up the last couple of items.
I'll make that motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
And we'll do the roll call vote. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Okay, moving along. Town of Hopkinton, 0, 129 and 147 Hayden Row, Lot C, Myrtle Ave, Lot B, Fitch Ave. This is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 at 7, virtually online to hear all persons interested in abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by the town of Hopkinton to determine the limits and regulatory status of wetland resource areas. The location is 0, 129 and 147 Hayden Row, Lot C, Myrtle Avenue, and Lot B, Fitch Avenue. Okay.
Hi, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Claire Hogeboom, wetland scientist with LEC Environmental Consultants, representing the applicant, the town of Hopkinton.
Good evening.
Good evening. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen if possible.
Certainly.
Thank you. Let's see. All right, can you see the aerial image in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just to sort of summarize, we're here to request confirmation of wetland resource area boundaries that were delineated on 6 parcels that you mentioned in your introduction. That includes 1 bordering vegetated wetland, 4 isolated vegetated wetlands, and the mean annual high water line associated with a field observed depression that has the characteristics of a vernal pool. In addition to that, we are seeking confirmation that no other wetland resource areas are located within our site, which is identified in the red outline here. And we are also seeking confirmation that vernal pool habitat does not extend onto the southwestern portion of the site. So just to give you some context of the project or the site location, how the site is located east of Hayden Row here. That's in a northwest-southeast direction. We have Briarcliff Drive and residential development south of the site. And Briarcliff just goes off screen here a little bit to the east of the site. And we have Blueberry Lane to the northeast of the site with residential development and forested upland habitat to the northeast here. Notably, our 6 parcels that are included in this application, the northernmost parcel here actually does include the Marathon Elementary School where my cursor is over. However, for the purposes of this ANRAD application, we are specifically excluding the Marathon Elementary School and resource areas that are located to the north of the driveway entrance to the school. So our focus on confirmation of resource areas is on the parcels outlined in red here.
Okay.
The site is generally undeveloped and comprised of forested upland habitat. I'm sure folks that have lived in town a long time know that in previous years, based on historic aerial imagery as well, between the 30s and 60s, this portion that my cursor is hanging over was previously used for agricultural use. And since the 60s, that had since ceased and vegetation has been left to naturally revegetate. So while we have a lot of sort of older forested upland habitat in the eastern portion of the site, there's some newer, scrub vegetation in this sort of western portion of the property here. And just to point out, earlier I mentioned the vernal pool habitat that we wanted to confirm was not present in the southwestern portion of our site. We have a natural heritage mapped potential vernal pool in this ponded depression here just off site. We did conduct a vernal pool survey of that, and I'll just go into that in a little bit, but I just wanted to draw the eyes to this spot because we'll come here eventually.
Okay.
I'm going to move over to the plan set that we submitted with our ANRAD application. This is the first sheet of our plan set that was prepared by BSC Group. Our wetland boundaries, wetland flag locations were survey located by the surveyor and are shown on the plan and color coded as you see here. So just to put everything into context, we have Hayden Row here, and this is the driveway entrance that my cursor is over up to the Marathon Elementary School. So our site focus is down below that. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this a bit better. So first and foremost, just south of the driveway entrance to Marathon Elementary School, we have a bordering vegetated wetland highlighted in green. It's associated with an intermittent stream that flows in a southwest direction towards the residential development on Hayden Row Street. And that ultimately discharges into a small depression, which is the field observed depression that has the physical characteristics of vernal pool that we delineated in January of 2023. At that time, we saw about 6 to 8 inches of standing water in this location. However, in the spring, when we conducted our vernal pool studies, this depression did not hold any standing water. So we did not conduct any vernal pool survey within this location. The remaining wetlands on site are all isolated vegetated wetlands. We have an F series in the eastern portion of our property here. And as you come to the southwest portion, this is 147 that contains an existing single family dwelling and manicured lawn in the rear. There's a stone wall that runs along the property line here. And on the eastern side of that, we have an A series, a B series, and a D series isolated vegetated wetland. I believe that covers the delineated wetlands that we observed and documented on the site that we're asking confirmation of. And I just wanted to additionally note that the site does not contain an area of critical environmental concern. Based on the recent FEMA flood insurance rate map, the site is not located within the 100-year floodplain, so we do not have bordering land subject to flooding. And there is an outstanding resource water for public water supply watershed mapped west of Hayden Row Street. And it does extend north of the driveway here. So it is not located within our survey area for this ANRAD application. So I'm drawing your attention back to that natural heritage map to potential vernal pool that's located just off site to the south here one more time, because our project team had a preliminary meeting with the planning board and Kim, the conservation agent, in March of this year. And Kim recommended that we conduct a vernal pool survey of this ponded area here. She indicated that there was a previous determination done in 2010 for development of this property. And during that survey, it was confirmed that adult fish populations were present in this area. So considering it was quite a while ago, and we wanted to confirm whether we had the vernal pool habitat located on our site, it made a lot of sense to conduct the vernal pool survey again. So this April, we conducted an initial site evaluation and confirmed the presence of spotted salamander and wood frog egg masses, which are both obligate breeding vernal pool species. So ultimately that could confirm a vernal pool status. However, we continued our survey into June and we set metal fish traps that were baited within the pond and did confirm the presence of bullhead catfish measuring about 6.5 inches long. So we did confirm the presence of adult predatory fish in the pond. And while there are obligate vernal pool breeding activity observed, considering the fish population, we're determining that it does not meet the criteria to be considered a certified vernal pool. And in fact, just based on approximate aerial imagery, it appears that this feature is greater than 10,000 square feet, and it does hold a sufficient amount of water. We saw about 3.5 to 4 feet of standing water just within the first 10 feet of the edge of this area, and it got much deeper as we were trying to walk through with our waders. So it does appear that this holds a sufficient amount of water and might meet the criteria for pond more appropriately.
Okay.
So with that, I think that kind of covers all of the site conditions. And I understand that Lucas Environmental has been engaged to conduct the peer review for this ANRAD process. So, you know, we're just on standby awaiting their review and their initial comments, and happy to facilitate their review in any way they need us to. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the commission before we turn it over to Joe? Okay, so Joe, you haven't had a chance to take a look at this as of.
That's correct. Have not started our review of this project yet, but we'll be getting started on that shortly.
Okay. Okay, great. So is there any questions or comments from audience members at this point? Doesn't look like anyone's hands raised. Okay. So if I can get a motion to continue this to the August 8th meeting, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And we'll do the roll call vote. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have an excellent evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving along. For Toll Brothers, we have a number of notices of intent for single-family homes. And I think I'll just, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 5 of them. I'll open all of those. And we can talk about them since they're part of a subdivision. So the Housing and Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 at 7 o'clock, virtually online, to hear all persons interested in notices of intent filed by Toll Brothers for the construction of single-family homes with associated site work. And those locations are 9 Myrtle Avenue, 7 Myrtle Avenue, 11 Myrtle Avenue, 4 Myrtle Avenue, and 13 Fitch Avenue. Okay, do we have Bowler Engineering on the call?
We do. I am Ted Merchant. I am Land Development Director with Toll Brothers. I have with me Matt Ashley from Bowler Engineering and Ann Martin of LEC Environmental.
Okay, Mr. Merchant, yep. Go ahead.
Just want to give a brief overview of why we're here and what we're looking to do. Obviously, have 5 orders and conditions in front of you. This was a subdivision that was approved in the late 80s and has recently received sewer approval, making it a viable subdivision. We are currently contract purchasers of this project. We're currently in our due diligence phase, so we are investigating the property. And one of the main things that we're looking to do is understand the ability to get, excuse me, I got a 3-year-old talking to me. The ability to get orders on these 5 lots. So it's part of our investigation process. You know, obviously we will use these orders to construct the lots, but one of the things we wanted to do very early. I guess at this point I can just turn it over to Matt Ashley, who can give the engineering information on these lots.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. If it kind of makes sense, I can share my screen, or I don't know if you want to go lot by lot, whoever's controlling here, Kim. I don't know if it makes sense to go through one lot, pause, or go through all of them at once. Defer to the commission on what they feel that's appropriate.
Yeah, let's go lot by lot. if you would.
Excellent. Alrighty.
And Matt, you should be able to grab the screen at this point.
Okay. Can everyone see a plan?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so the first lot that we can look at is 9 Myrtle Ave, otherwise known as map 23 lot 58. And kind of for a bigger sense of picture where this is located, it's located on the southern side of Myrtle Ave with the isolated wetland located on the north side of Myrtle Ave. So Toll Brothers is proposing to develop the lot with a single family unit home with a connection out to Myrtle Ave for their driveway access. Likewise with utilities are proposed to be connected through the proposed utilities as part of the other plan set in Myrtle Ave. As far as grading goes, the site is matched to the kind of the post watershed analysis that was done previously, where grading from the front of the units is going to naturally fall out to the roadway. In the rear of the units, about halfway through the house, is going to propose to grade out through the back into a large swale system, which ultimately leads down to the larger watershed and into the existing basins down on Blueberry Ave. The only exception to that is the houses are proposed, the roof runoff is proposed to connect through a gutter system down onto an appropriate amount of infiltration chambers on the lot, depending on the final location of where those will be. On this particular lot, the structure in the house is outside of the 100-foot buffer, and only grading impacts are proposed within the 50 to 100-foot buffer. And then for reference here, this is where this is with the new Myrtle Ave coming through, and the 50 foot's just about right on that property line there. And appropriate erosion controls were put on here. And that's kind of like a quick brief overview. I don't know if Anne from LEC would like to add anything wetland related, or can happy to answer any questions on this specific lot.
Ann, did you have anything to add at this point?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I had a quick question, Matt. The infiltration of the roof runoff, you guys have, presumably accounted for the high water table in the area when that was designed?
Yeah, so that was part of the larger plan set, but that will definitely be verified out there where that is, where those infiltration chambers have to sit appropriately to groundwater.
Okay. Okay, good. And I don't know if there's other comments from commission members on this lot.
I just have a question through the chair. If the house was moved back, it's up kind of far. If the house was moved back, could the buffer zone be left untouched?
I had a similar question, so thank you, Janine.
So the house definitely is outside of the buffer zone already. But with the roadway improvements coming through here and grading, I don't think we could fully get out of the buffer, just with all the improvements that do have to come through here for the larger development.
Yeah, just for the commission's benefit too, this is a subdivision that was approved back in the 80s. So, technically they aren't required to meet the current bylaw standards. The standards that they have to adhere to are much more relaxed. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through the review process here. And I think that Toll Brothers and BOLA has, done a good job on these applications of keeping structure or staying outside the 50-foot buffer and I think for the most part, the structure is outside of the 100-foot, correct, Kim? On all these sites, is that right?
I think one structure's in the buffer.
Okay.
Yeah, as we go through, I think there might be one.
There's a couple, yeah. And
Yeah.
I can like those on the ones that we go through.
Okay, great. If you can point those out, Matt, as we go through the review here. That'd be
Jeff,
great.
may I make just one other comment?
Sure. Yep.
What I like about this lot is the position of the driveway with respect to the buffer, which looks different from the lot we're going to see in a moment immediately to the east. And I wonder when we get to the one to the east, if we can say, why not do with the driveway what we did here and keep that pavement out of the buffer zone?
Would you like us to respond to that now, or should we wait till we see the plan?
Probably.
Yeah, let's wait until we get to that plan. Sorry, Ted.
No, I was going to say the same thing, but since we have this picture in front, I wanted to bring it up now as kind of foreshadowing.
Love a good foreshadow. All right. Should I move on to the next one, or is there any other questions?
Sure. Yep.
Awesome. So, as promised on the next one, this is 7 Myrtle Ave, further denoted as map 23, lot 57. And in the big picture here, you can see we just looked at lot 14. We are going plan right, 1 unit off of Myrtle Ave. Typical to the other units, access will be off of Myrtle Ave, which along with utilities will be accessed through the proposed utility connections through Myrtle Ave. Grading, same as before, front half of the property is graded to go towards Myrtle Ave, where the back half of the property is out back to a swale system, which goes down into the larger stormwater network down on Blueberry Lane. Roof runoff again is proposed through infiltration chambers throughout or around the house, excuse me. And this particular lot as well, this particular lot is outside the 50-foot buffer, and the structure itself is outside of the 100-foot buffer. And as promised, you can see this driveway does go through over here. But we can certainly look at with toll shifting that driveway to see if we can do something to get that out of the buffer.
And if I could just, we can discuss this for a minute here. The reason we have it showing this way, I think twofold. First, the wetland itself is across the street, right? There is a border of roadway, and thought that, that, I guess, made the 50 to 100 a little less crucial to save, I guess. And the reason it's flipped this way is a grading exercise, right? A driveway on the high side creates less grading and less, I guess, awkwardness on the opposite side. If we were to flip it, it can be done, and we would do it if you so chose. But it does make the grading a little bit awkward on the low side.
Okay, I'll open it up to comments from commission members.
I guess I'll say, I don't know what awkwardness means. I don't know how to design these things. If it can be moved, I'd prefer it to be moved, especially I know there's going to be a road, and I know there's going to be gutters, and I know there's going to be curbing, but seeing a driveway flow straight downhill toward the wetland gives me pause as well. It's directly across the street. So, but I don't know the kind of complications flipping it to the other side would cause. Looking at a piece of paper, it looks like a piece of cake, but obviously earth is not a piece of paper.
We can grade it like that and take a look and see what it does.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, I think to the extent that we can keep, activities out of the buffer zone, that would be appreciated by the commission. Okay. All right, any other comments from commission members? All right, move on to the next one.
Next lot. So next one is 11 Fitch Avenue, further denoted as map 22 lot 65. So for this particular lot, we're traveling north down Fitch Ave to the highlighted section right here. So kind of plan west of the isolated wetland here. So access is going to be off of Fitch Avenue. And grading very similar to the other lots where stuff on the or runoff from the front of the house will be graded down to Fitch Avenue, and on the rear of the property, it will fall to the back. This is one of those particular units where the structure is within the 100-foot buffer just because of how uniquely shaped the lot is with the existing grades out there. But we did grade it down to maintain the 50-foot buffer out back likewise. And again, roof infiltration is proposed on the property. One of the comments we did, I meant to note this earlier on the other plans, is that there was, they asked for the percentage of impacts to the buffer for each lot. So we went ahead and added that to these plans that you're viewing here today. And I'd be happy to go back and look at those other ones if needed. Along with the other comment of we needed permanent markers along the limit of disturbance. So we've proposed those as part of this plan, which kind of go along lines. So you'd have a good idea once everything's built where that line is delineated for the limit of disturbance. Utilities, again, will be connected out through the front on Fitch Avenue. And that's a highlight of this lot.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments from commission members?
Jeff, may I ask you or Kim a question for clarification?
Certainly.
I know the subdivision was approved in the late 80s, but the lots weren't. So I'm just a little bit confused about which set of regs. Is it automatic? Like if the lots were approved back in the 80s, I understand then that the buffer zone impacts, we look at them differently, but the lots were not proposed or approved back then, were they?
The lots were approved, Kim, correct?
Yeah, for these lots approved, or were they changed? I know there were paper lots in the beginning, but didn't these lots change?
So I believe the subdivision plans that were approved by the planning board in the 80s included lot lines, but did not include necessarily the construction of homes and associated site preparation.
Did these lot lines change?
They did not, and they I believe that they cannot change without triggering a new planning board review. That being said, you know, we have a new notice of intent before us. So my assumption would be that this is a modern request. But with the understanding that the overall subdivision itself is kind of a done deal, you know, the layouts of the streets, the stormwater, that's probably gone and past us. But I personally would assume that the new notice of intent would be under our current regs. I can circle back with, a town council on that matter. That being said, I know that the applicant did make some efforts to provide some additional maintenance and upkeep of the existing stormwater out there, and also, to work with the commission on, creating wetland replication and some other additional improvements and mitigation for this application.
I think can I just throw in a thought of history?
Sure.
Yeah. We recently looked at this and approved the roadway, correct? I believe we had to relook at the wetland lines and get an updated wetland delineation. I mean, this was like within the last times of war from COVID, but within the last 2 years.
2021.
2021, okay. And they updated the drainage calculations because we asked that the new stormwater regs be used. So I think all of those things were looked at more recently than the previous subdivision.
Yeah, I believe that the drainage was improved, but not brought up to the current regulations because that was not a requirement. It didn't get triggered by planning board requirements. So yeah, I believe there was an improvement, but it's not the subdivision itself is not meeting the current stormwater bylaw, Town of Hopkinton bylaw regulations as it stands.
Yeah, and the other thing too, Kim, is that the isolated vegetated wetland wasn't a resource area that was originally identified on the plan, and that's been updated on this plan.
Yep, that is correct. I don't think it was jurisdictional back in the 80s when this was permitted.
If I may, through the chair, just a point here. Like you guys mentioned, there was a site order of conditions approved in 2021, and that order has a specific condition that speaks to this lot and the next two lots. It's condition number 98, and it says disturbance within 0 to 50 foot bylaw buffer zone resource area related to lots 47, 52, and 54. Shall be at the discretion of the Conservation Commission and shall contemplate cumulative impacts to resource areas related to the overall subdivision and development and construction. So I think in the approval of the subdivisions order, consideration was given for these three lots, and part of the reason that we showed some of the lot within the 100-foot buffer, because you cannot fit a house on that lot without it.
Well, you can't fit a 5-bedroom house with 3 garages.
Of the homes that we've proposed in the subdivision, I believe, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is the smallest.
So you could fit a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage home potentially. But, you know, the Toll Brothers standard homes that you guys like to build, you know, wouldn't potentially fit on the lot, correct?
I couldn't say that a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage could, but yes, this is the smallest model that we would offer here, and we tried to fit it as best we could.
Could I ask, what is the size of the house?
Matt, you're going to need to help me with that one.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I can give you the exact size here. But this is the smallest one, correct?
Which is 5,000 plus square feet, I would think.
No, not close.
No.
While Matt's running the math, I just wanted to clarify your comment, Ted, referring back to the special condition in the subdivision order of condition that refers to the 0 to 50 foot bylaw buffer that allowing work within that zone was at the commission's discretion. On these 5 lots, other than I guess on these 5 lots, we're not doing any work in the 0 to 50 foot, correct? We respected that boundary and the work is from 50 to 100 feet.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling that up.
Yeah, you said that, and I said, that does sound like something I would write.
So this particular lot is 3,800 square feet for the house.
Okay.
Let's check that and we'll get back to you because even that seems large. So we can come back to that.
Okay.
Subsequent hearing.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ted.
I think good conversation just started here. My question, and I'd love for us to finish that conversation at future meetings. My question was really aiming mostly at that point at simply the backyard space. Jeff reads my mind when he says houses can be smaller, which changes what can be done on lots. And I know that the planning board has setbacks from the front of the road that need to be adhered to. I was really in that moment only looking at the amount of backyard, which I assume is proposed to be lawn. We just had a meeting for the application for geothermal well drilling, and it looks like their lawn ends where their deck ends. They're right up against the wetlands. So I was just aiming in that moment at, can we cut back on that backyard? Can we get away from the 50-foot buffer zone boundary and not go right up against it? Can we cut the size of the backyard in half and say it's okay to play in the front yard? But I do think questions of the size of the house and what else can be done on a lot are worth exploring as well.
If Matt, maybe you could bring that plan back up, but I believe what we used as a basis for the yard here was piggybacking off of our Whalen and Chamberlain lots, saying that the rear yard would be 40 feet off the back of the house where appropriate. And you can see we cut that down here where it ran into the 50-foot buffer. And that's where we started here. And you can see on the right-hand side of the house, the side yard is small, right? We cut it right down basically to the back of the grading from the driveway and the corner of the house there. But then in the rear yard, which we thought was more important, we went to that 40-foot line where we didn't run into the 50. If that makes sense.
Through the chair, if I could just make one other comment then. Seeing that this was a Toll Brothers development, I immediately went back to our discussions about Chamberlain and Whalen. And I remember specifically, I'm speaking for myself, saying, I do not want to establish that we are saying that all backyards can be 40 feet within the 100-foot buffer. That has never been my intention. And I was a voice for cutting down the size of those backyards. Those were, in my mind, discussions about those lots individually, not establishing a new standard of what we're trying to do with backyard space. So, you know, I voted in favor of those 40-foot backyards, but I voted with the intention that that is true of that development, that lot, not a new standard that we are establishing. That was my own take on those discussions.
No, that's a valid point, Ted. Thank you.
And through the chair, in this case, you know, again, looking at paper and not at grading, it looks like if the house was flipped, we could at least not have the driveway and the walkway in the buffer zone. So it looks like it would be less of an impact flipped. Or maybe that puts more house in it. I don't know.
Matt, maybe you
I
guys
think
can
you-
take a look at that.
I think
Yeah.
you'd find that it does put more house into it.
Okay.
But we can look at it, but I think that that's what you'd find.
Okay, if you can take a look at it, that'd be.
Or maybe a front entrance driveway instead of side entrance would get it out.
Certainly take a look.
Okay, we want to move along to the next one.
Absolutely. So the next property is 4 Myrtle Avenue, otherwise known as map 23, lot 64. So for this particular one, we're coming back down to Myrtle Avenue, down to this triangular shaped lot closer down to Blueberry Lane. So this particular lot here, very similar, except for the rear of the property here, on the previously watershed plan that was done and approved, was all coming back down to Myrtle. So in this instance, everything from the rear of the property swales away around the house on either side, and either into the Myrtle Ave system, which then goes down to the existing Blueberry Lane. Access is done off of Myrtle Ave, along with all the utilities which are proposed within Myrtle Ave. Roof runoff again will be through infiltration chambers. And again, just by the shape of this lot and the setbacks, the house was brought as far plan right as we could fit. So the house is slightly within the 100-foot setback buffer, excuse me. And then grading was really limited here on the side of the lot to what made sense for grading in a stormwater swale. And that was limited outside of the 50-foot buffer, just about halfway.
Okay, comments, questions from the commission? You just enlarge that a little bit, please, Matt. Thank you. Okay. Move
Yeah,
along.
if I may, I'll
Yep,
just make
yep.
one comment that'll be a blanket comment. The less we can have lawn within the buffer zone, the happier I will be always. I am not ever saying you're not allowed a blade of grass within the buffer. I don't even say you're not allowed to have structure within the buffer, but generally speaking, so I don't have to make the same comment whenever it comes up, the less grass within the buffer, the happier a commission member I am.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, let's move to the next one, Matt.
Last but not least, we have 13 Fitch Ave, map 23, lot 62. And this one, we're coming down to the corner of Fitch Avenue and Myrtle Avenue, located right here. This one is typical to grading. The rear of the house goes towards the back, while the front of the house is graded down to Fitch Avenue. Driveway connection and utilities will be coming off of Fitch Avenue. In this particular unit, with the setbacks here, very small footprint to fit the house to the back. So the structure is within the 100-foot buffer, but again, typical to the one we looked just planned north here. We limited the backyard outside of the 50-foot buffer until we got down to that previously mentioned dimension, which is what we just started with. And on this particular unit as well, we have the buffers are off of the proposed replication area, which I think Melissa noted earlier. So this is all the planned replication area for the Myrtle Ave disturbance over here. So that's where we took our measurements from, not from what's out there today. The markers, again, we denoted markers kind of one of the peer review comments, along with the percentage of buffer impact here.
Okay. Yeah, this one, you know, a significant portion of the house is in the 50 to 100 foot. So I don't know if there's any way that you can, I mean, this is a difficult lot, it looks like, given the constraints, but you know, if you guys can take a look at it and see what you can do, and I'll open up to questions from the commission members.
Yeah, agree. If we could do a smaller house at all here. So more than half the house is not in the 50 to 100.
Through the chair.
Yes, Kim.
Joe provided a review of these applications. I'm not sure if he had some comments to share.
Yeah, yep, I was about to ask Joe. Thank you, though, for reminding me. Joe, did you want to go through your comments, please?
As soon as I unmute myself, sure. I did go out and walk the site, all 5 lots. In general, just current conditions, the lots are forested. Topography is relatively level, gently sloping. No severe slope areas were observed in any of the proposed work areas. The limit of the 100-foot buffer zone was flagged in the field, and that provided me with orientation as far as where I was. Did not see any markings for the individual lot lines or limit of work, so I couldn't be real exact with my locations, but I was able to generally figure out where I was based on the buffer zone flagging. Did note that the wetland flags in the IVW should be refreshed. Some of them are missing, some are just flag stubs, and some are like that, barely readable. I did note within the application that although they provided the distances of disturbance and they're outside the 50-foot no disturb and no build zones, there was no discussion or evaluation of potential buffer zone impacts for each of the lots. The lots, as you can see in general, are, like I said, forested. There's a lot of mature red oak and a fair number of beech trees, although a number of the beech trees are declining, are diseased. But the oak trees are common. There are many large trees in the 12 to roughly 30-inch diameter breast height class, which certainly provide wildlife habitat value for mast crop. I would recommend that the commission, discuss whether an evaluation of buffer zone impacts should be provided by the applicant for each lot, including potential impacts to wildlife and wildlife habitat with the removal of the mast trees.
So I think they did provide the buffer zone impacts, if I recall.
The square footage is provided. That is correct.
Okay.
But as far as potential impacts to the interests protected under the bylaw, or should be provided also, I believe.
Okay. Yep. No, you're correct. Yep. And then do we have the cumulative buffer zone impacts for the entire subdivision, Joe?
I believe those numbers have been added to the current site plan, which was just being reviewed. I don't know that I have the total number in front of me here. but they are provided for each lot. So, I mean, the cumulative would just be adding those up. I also did note that there is almost an astonishing lack of invasive vegetation on these lots. And really the only invasives I saw were right along the proposed entrance on Blueberry Lane, where there was some bittersweet and some multiflora rose. But within the lots, it's hard pressed to find actually any invasive vegetation. So again, I would recommend the commission discuss whether an invasive species management plan should be provided for the lots to prevent the spread of invasives during construction of the lots. I had noted that PIB barriers were not marked. That has been apparently added to the plans. I also noted that the on WPA Form 3, the signatures were not dated. Recommend those be dated, and that no notice of intent checklists were submitted with the information that we had reviewed. As far as the erosion controls, concur with the design of what's proposed, presuming proper installation and maintenance. And I think that covers my comments.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So Ted, can I just, let's talk about the stormwater infrastructure for a second. What's the plan on bringing that to, current standards or, maintenance of the existing detention basins that are out there, those types of things? Can you just kind of help us out with that?
Sure. As part of the site order, there are certain upgrades to the detention basins, which is going to include maintenance, and I believe adding stormwater forebays and contact units in front of them. So we would perform that work as part of the construction of the subdivision itself. As far as the infrastructure within the street, I think it was discussed a little bit. Kim mentioned it, that it was designed in the 80s, and we haven't done a full evaluation yet of exactly what it would mean to upgrade the system, but if it sounds like it's something that we are amenable to doing if it helps us with the commission here. So I think we want to do a little bit more research there and understand what the commission's desires are. But my understanding from conversations with Kim and John Gelsich was that it is generally desired by the town. So we've started to look into it. I don't have a final answer, but it sounds like something that we'd be happy to discuss.
Yeah, that would be great. And, Kim and John can, are in a better position to kind of give you guidance on, in those respects. But certainly, if, whatever upgrades that you do, the commission would take that into account, as mitigation. We contemplate that in our approval of, what's being proposed in terms of the housing units on the different lots. I think, or I'm sure that Kim and John have relayed to you that there are stormwater issues at the site, very high groundwater table. There's runoff on some of the existing neighbors' lawns. I think there's a trench that's being proposed to be installed to help abate that situation for some of the homeowners with the runoff. But we just want to make sure that, the existing folks that, the homeowners that live in the subdivision aren't going to be impacted by the new development in terms of, it kind of exasperating what's going out there. And of course, any new development and homes that are going in, we don't want to have issues with those in the future. So, just if you guys can, just make sure that that's all. And I'm sure it is, as I said, if Kim and John are speaking with you, but those are some other concerns that the commission has. And I'll open it up to other comments and thoughts from the commission members before we open it up to the audience.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that, Jeff?
Yes, Melissa.
When we're talking about upgrades, are we talking about upgrades to the proposed drainage system, or are we talking about upgrades to like the catch basins and drain that's in Blueberry Lane? Just to clarify what we would potentially be looking at to upgrade.
Through the chair,
Yes, Kim.
I'm hoping I can jump in here. I'm playing catch up on this whole subdivision, having come in 2021, but from my experience in 2021, what I remember is the portions of the subdivision that were developed back, I don't know, in the 80s, did get stormwater infrastructure, and that's what you're seeing here, these detention basins. And the subdivision, as part of the Concom subdivision approval, the applicant at the time agreed to improve the existing infrastructure by installing those 4 bays. But in doing so, that does not necessarily meet the stormwater, MA stormwater checklist and the Town of Hopkinton stormwater bylaw modern regulations. So what was offered was improvement, but not total compliance, because that was not necessary, because there was already a permit in hand from the 1980s.
So the improvements that are shown on this plan right here with the basin, like the 4 bays, like you were saying, those are set in stone and need to be built in order for the roadway to be built, right? Is that correct? And when we talk about entertaining upgrades, that's something in addition to what is drawn on the plan?
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's all. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and those basins, Kim, effectively weren't even maintained for like the past 20 years, right? They are
very, very out of working order.
Yeah. Okay.
As the discussion that John and I had with Mr. Marchand basically was that the town is probably not going to be very likely to accept this as a town road at any point if the development is not brought up to the current stormwater standards. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. Are there any other comments from commission members?
I have a comment.
Yes,
Not
Janine, go
related
ahead.
to stormwater though. So I don't know if anybody has stormwater questions. I can wait.
Nope, go. You can jump in, Janine.
So it's my understanding that Adams Street going down the middle goes away. So I'm wondering if lot 47, since Adams Street's not really there and the setbacks are set based on Adams Street, if planning board would be a little bit lenient on that side setback from Adams Street, which is actually not going to be there, and that way can get the house potentially out of the buffer zone. So I don't know if that could be the developer would consider seeing if they could get the side setback.
Yeah, that's a good point, Janine. Yeah. It's certainly something that you guys can look into.
So just as a little bit of background here, I think that was explored briefly at one point to eliminate Adams Street. However, that would put this into a re-subdivision and bring everything back through planning board approval. So I think that was a non-starter at the time. Now, I think what you're suggesting may be a little bit different than that. Maybe would be a ZBA waiver on the side yard setback is what you're looking for. there, and I think we can probably explore that. I think it might take a little bit of time, but we can explore it.
But Adams Street won't be constructed, correct?
Correct. Adams Street won't be constructed. And in fact, in the plan that you're showing, I believe is the conservation restriction plan, or at least shows lot 42, 48, 53, and 49 are all to be restricted. Adams Street, I believe, is not to be restricted, just because it's going to be a paper road, right, and not a lot. So, yes, Adams Street would not be built. It's a long way of saying that.
Okay, so since it's not going to be constructed, ZBA may be willing to give a little bit of leniency on the setback there for that one lot, right? Potentially. To Janine's point.
Yeah, I mean, we won't know until we ask, but.
Yep. Okay. Okay. All right, I'll open up to questions, comments from the public at this point.
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Sorry,
If you could
I don't
just
have-
if you can just state your name and address, that would be great for the record.
Yeah, it's Carolyn Scott from 15 Blueberry Lane.
Hi, Mrs. Scott.
Hi, thank you. So we're one of the houses, one of the numerous houses on Blueberry that have experienced groundwater flooding on our property and our basement. So we're obviously concerned about the impact of this development. So I just wanted to ask a couple clarifying questions. One was just to make sure. So I know that we just talked about Adams Street, that it wouldn't be constructed, but I feel like it's still the language is a little gray around that. I just wanted to make sure, because it still pops up on the like every time we see a map, it still pops up on there. So I wasn't sure if they meant like, that they're aware that it's not going to be constructed like period ever versus like at this moment. And then the other clarifying question I wanted to have or mention was that in 2016, when the Abbott Realty sued the town for the sewer connections, and it was denied by John Westerling, and then they did a settlement in 2019, and it limited the development to 16 sewer connections. So I just wanted to point that out because it mentioned that the subdivision is a 24 lot subdivision.
Okay, Mr. Bertrand, did you want to respond?
It's Merchant, and yes. So it is a 24 lot subdivision. However, the 4 lots that I just named are going to be part of conservation restriction. So they'll be conserved and not be able to be built. So
just for clarification, that's lot 42, 49, 48, and 53.
Yes, those ones that are being pointed out there, correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then to the comment on sewer connections, I don't have the whole history because it wasn't us that did it, but there has been further approval of 4 additional sewer lots on the site, bringing the total to 20. So that's where it stands in terms of being sewered.
Okay, I just thought it was, I just thought the language was interesting in the settlement agreement because it said, in the event Abbott modifies its proposal to include more than 16 lots or dwelling units, this agreement shall be null and void. So I just wasn't aware of the new settlement agreement.
Yeah, I'm not, Kim, did you have any, I don't have any knowledge as to what the current settlement agreement is. Did you?
Yeah, that's I'm just discussing with Anna, that's a flaming hot potato.
Yeah, because I do recall the language saying that if there was more than, I think it was the 16, that it would be null and void, but I'm not sure where that went. But maybe that's something we can look into, Kim.
I am aware that there have been additional communications and legalese between town council and applicants in regards to this. And I can coordinate with DPW. I think it's in DPW's hands, and it's kind of a DPW issue. So I don't want to, like I said, comment on. I don't think I'm capable of commenting on it. So let's follow up with that. But in any case, I'm not sure that it is something that Concom can or should kind of insert themselves in.
Right. It's out of our jurisdiction. So it's, ultimately the DPW that has purview over that, but
which
Well,
is
I think
now
the one-
headed by Carrie. So
I was gonna say, I think the one place where we might have an interest there is if there's lots not to be built on, we would prefer them to be the ones that would be impacting our wetlands or impacting our buffer zone, to not be the ones built on, but yeah, I guess that's a place where it would be interesting for us to know for sure.
okay.
that is a good point.
Yes, Miss Mazza.
Hi,
Good
I
evening.
actually live in, good evening. Thank you very much. This has been very informative. I actually live on the other side at 17 Blueberry. So right next to where Adam Street is no longer. And it's very interesting to hear exactly, like, I'm curious of with the drainage or the water and with trees being cleared, and there's already a lot of us that have water issues in our backyard. How will this impact us? I don't know who can answer that, but
So, Mr. Merchant.
like when all is said and done and like the trees are clear and that's what's absorbing the existing water, what's going to happen?
I can answer.
Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry. I'm used to Teams and not Zoom. So sometimes I can't unmute myself, which may be a good thing. So as part of the previous review that I think Melissa was talking about earlier, the engineer did a review of a pre and post watershed analysis on where water is going today and with this development where it would go after it's built. And it was shown in that stormwater report that it was going to reduce runoff from the site. Because as of right now, everything is just coming right down that hill out back. But with all the new improvements as part of this development, it's going to be designed and captured a larger amount of it. And either be infiltrated on the lots or be captured and run down to those existing basins that are down on Blueberry Ave. And obviously those are proposed to kind of get reestablished so they function more appropriately to the initial design.
So does that mean also over by EMC Park where all that water and Marathon, where all that water also comes over to us, that's going to be dealt with too?
I'm not familiar where that is.
So that's on the other side of, is that behind, is that Nicholas and Maria's house over there, like over by lot 7 and lot 5? That's over by where EMC and like Marathon's behind that, EMC Park. So a lot of that, when they put in the new school, a lot of the water shifted and then water was running off into our backyards basically too.
Gotcha.
So there's all these different impacts, but nothing was done about that. And I appreciate that we've been talking about like the 1989 version of the drainage system. So I just wasn't sure, where does that water go?
So yeah, so anything that would flow, from my understanding of where you just mentioned, onto these lots here, we're going to be graded and designed better to capture that runoff at where it's supposed to go. Well, not supposed to go. It's going where it's going now, but with the new design. We want to make sure, and we have to make sure that it's not increasing runoff from those other areas. And I think in addition to not only just the roadway improvements, there are a drainage swale and ditch kind of on the bottom of those units, I think behind your properties, which is designed to capture additional runoff. That's not required, but was implemented in the stormwater design to make sure we can reduce stormwater as best we can, or runoff, I should say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that swale and trench system that we talked about a couple of years ago, that's going to be installed and is intended to prevent water from kind of, the west of Fitch Avenue, I think, flowing down to prevent that from, or to intercept that flow so it's not getting down towards Blueberry Lane. Is that correct, Matt?
That is correct. Yeah, there's two different ones. One that kind of goes kind of near those conservation areas and goes plan right. And then there's another one down to those other two existing family homes that goes down to Myrtle as well. Yep, there you go.
Right, okay. Okay, Mr. Sellers.
Hi, good evening. I live at 11 Blueberry. It's right at the corner of Myrtle and Blueberry. And when they built my house, they built 9 Blueberry first, and because of the retention pond, moved that house over 25 feet. And then when they built my house, they built it over 25 feet. Now my driveway is in the middle of the road. And I want to find out how they're going to deal with that.
So your driveway, I'm not sure I'm following you.
If you go down to the end of my driveway at 11 Blueberry, there's a spike in the middle of my driveway. And I asked when I first moved here, a year after I moved here, there's a spike that says that's the edge of the road. And you can see how the road crosses over my driveway.
So what's your question specifically?
Well, I just want to know how they how are they going to deal with that? Simply because, people are going to be turning into my driveway to turn onto Myrtle Ave.
So if I may, here, Mr. Sellers, while not necessarily a Concom issue, I agree that's something that we need to resolve. As I said at the beginning of this, we're in due diligence on purchasing this property. So we have not overturned every stone. And that's one of them that we still need to get to the bottom of. So
yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Just because the original developer kind of threw this to the back burner. He didn't want to deal with it, and now I have to deal with it. So I just wanted to let you guys know.
Well, that's good information and something that I can follow up with you on offline.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Gelbart.
Hi, how are you?
Good evening.
I'm Stephanie Gelbach. I'm at 19 Blueberry Lane. I just had a quick question with regard to utilities. I know that it's been, I don't know if it's something that would specifically be dealt with here, but I know a number of people on the street have been questioning why we haven't had access to natural gas. I didn't know if those would be some of the utilities that would be included in this new development, and if so, if Blueberry Lane would also be able to attach to that line, should that be included?
I can answer that quickly. We don't intend to offer natural gas here. With energy code changing, it does not make financial sense to offer it to new home buyers. So we are not bringing natural gas to the subdivision.
Okay. And could I ask a second question with regard to the the drainage with the swale.
Yes.
If you can recognize on lot 42, there is, it looks like a diagonal system that runs from, not sure what the street is, from Fitch Ave behind all the properties. It crosses over lot 42 and then runs down, and it will connect eventually into Blueberry. So that was something that I had requested with the previous owner of the property, specifically because a lot of the runoff seems to kind of come from that direction. Just curious, I know that when we were talking about it at the time, he had mentioned it was going to be a combination of, I believe, a French drain with a berm. Is that what is still currently expected to be in place once the development is built?
I'll defer to Matt on that. I believe so, but
Yep, yeah, I can answer that one. That's what they show in the plans. Yep, thank you. I'm assuming that's Kim bringing that up. But yeah, there's a berm, and then it's like a stone trench with a perforated pipe in it to collect runoff. And then kind of
and that runoff will then go into the sewer system.
That's proposed to be connected into the stormwater system, not sewer, but yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, do we have any other comments from the public before we move on here?
Through the chair?
Yes, Kim.
I just wanted to ask Matt if I could have those updated plans that he's been displaying tonight, if he could grab a copy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anyone else's hand raised. So I think we are ready to move on, but if I can get a motion to continue the hearing.
I have just a clarifying question to ask the commission. If you don't mind.
Yep, who are we speaking with?
Ann Martin from LEC Environmental, representing Toll.
Yes, Ann, go ahead.
When Joe reviewed his memo, he had two recommendations that the commission hasn't responded to. And of course, this all goes back to the reference to the fact that the plan is 1980 plan and what regs are we complying with. But he had recommended an evaluation of the impacts of the buffer zone and the 50 to 100 foot. And he had recommended a management plan for the individual lots in relationship to invasive species. And I just wanted to get some feedback from the commission on that recommendation in the light of we're all kind of like juggling and dancing around the 1980 current regs to know what your expectations would be from us going forward.
Yeah, so I think to Kim's comment, we're looking at these as new NOIs filed, so they would be, I think we're looking at the current bylaw and regs, as part of our evaluation. In terms, and I think we've given feedback on kind of each of the individual house lots and, what the specific, commission members and what the commission at large is looking for. In terms of the mitigation, I think, Joe, and I'll just let you kind of take this one, but, I think Joe's point was that there was not a lot of invasives at the site as of now, but there was some along Blueberry Lane, but we want to prevent during construction any of the invasives being spread to other parts of the site. And Joe, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, no, I think you stated it exactly correctly. Like I said, the lots are actually pretty remarkably free of invasives. And the concern, at least that I would have, is that during construction, the seeds or propagules of some of those plants would be brought in to the site, and then you have an issue with invasives, coming up on all the lots. And my other comment that Ann had mentioned was regarding an evaluation of potential impacts on wildlife and wildlife habitat, primarily associated with the loss of a lot of sizable red oak trees.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank
Does
you,
that
Joe.
provide clarification? Ann?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, if I can get a motion to continue the hearing until August 8th, please.
So moved.
So moved.
So Janine in a second,
So moved. So I'll second it.
Jim, and we'll do the roll call. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, great. Thank you, folks. See you back on the 8th.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, moving along, Rebel Hill. This is a continuation of a notice of intent for 2 single-family homes. Do we have someone on the call from representing Rebel Hill?
Yep, Nick Scully of VHB. Good evening. Representing Rebel Hill. Also on the line is Rick Valarelli.
All right, Nick, do you want to give us an update as to where we're at?
Sure. So we had a number of comments last time. We've been back and forth with a number of agencies, or I guess town departments. We have submitted the septic system to the Board of Health, so we're waiting a review and some comments on that plan. We have gone back and forth with Beta. We recently submitted a second round of response to comments, which I think addressed most of the issues. There was one or two questions for the commission just about items being conditioned, but we did provide and update the sequencing plan, the operations and maintenance plan, as well as a draft of the stormwater pollution prevention plan, which I know were sort of questions that everyone had. We did speak and have a few conversations with the fire department. We sent them the updated plans, and it sounds like no additional comments. So I think they're all set with this, and their truck can get up to these residences and they'll be sprinklered. So I think those are the big updates. We did provide in our sort of response to comments letter an updated peak rate and peak volume table, which shows there's been no change since the last time that had been reviewed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, happy to answer any questions the commission may have, but I think the one outstanding comment that was in the Beta letter was the lack of test pits throughout the site. And we've since added those to this plan. They're shown in that sort of light brown color, which shows a number of test pits littered throughout the parcel. So hopefully that addresses that piece, and I think everything else was we agreed with and updated in the latest response.
Okay. So we just, we're going to need some time to kind of go through that. We just got it fairly recently. But a couple questions. So there's approximately 6,000, cubic feet of soil that's going to be removed as part of this project, correct?
Correct.
So have you received or submitted for the earth removal permit for this, Nick? From the planning board?
I don't believe so. We did the stormwater permit, but not the earthwork removal permit.
Okay. And then has the soil, the soil that's being excavated, has that been tested? And, where's the current plan? Where's that soil going to be shipped to?
We haven't tested that yet. There's a decent cost to test all that soil and get that stuff lined up. So without sort of all the approvals, we didn't want to go through that because it's I think it's per every 500 cubic yards. There's a significant cost to that.
Yeah. No. Okay. So it hasn't been tested yet. The reason I ask is there was reference to one of the documents that were submitted to the commission regarding PFASs. So I'm not sure if that was just part of a template that was submitted to us, or if, that was the question, was that, where that came from, whether testing was done. But it
Yeah, the
sounds like
stormwater pollution prevention plan, that's part of that template, and that's part of the new 2022 CGP, is to test for that potentially in the runoff, depending on how that soil testing sort of pans out during that construction process.
Okay. All right, that sounds good, and I'll open it up to questions, or actually, Joe, did you have any comments at this point?
Through the chair,
Yes, Kim.
I believe we just had beta on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I have reviewed the revised plans.
Got it. Okay, and you haven't had a chance, Kim, right, to go through this yet?
I haven't, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, well, let's, so we're gonna have to push this to the next meeting, but I just wanted to open it up to questions or comments from commission members.
Jeff, this is Jim.
Yes, Jim.
My overall comment is, I think I would like to walk this site, and maybe the commission wants to walk it as well. But I'm extremely concerned about the elevations and the slopes and the runoff and drainage. So I would like to see if we can have a site visit.
Through the chair, I was going to say the same thing. I was just on the phone with my daughter, though, and I got interrupted. And I know that Mr. Harrow would also like a site walk. I just texted him asking when he'll be back in town, but I haven't heard back.
Okay.
I think the answer to that, Ted, is the end of this week.
So Nick, can we get a site visit or site walk scheduled for the commission?
Sure.
Through the chair,
Yes, Kim.
I'm happy to kind of pull the parties together and get some proposed dates from Nick, and then send out kind of a survey of the commissioners to see if we can't get a date that works for the most amount of people.
That'd be fantastic, Kim. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Question for the chair and Kim, I guess.
Yes.
Would you prefer weekdays or a weekend time?
Preferably a weekend, I think, is when most of the commission members are available.
Okay.
On a Saturday or Sunday morning, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Although we do have daylight until like almost 8 p.m.
True. But we'll let Kim
For the
put some
record,
dates.
I'm available every day.
I'm unemployed all summer.
Yeah. You're on vacation, so Ted's available any day too.
Okay, well, Kim will
Ed's
put some
available
dates
every day.
together.
The chair, I just have a question. So I see that it's in a wellhead protection area. I assume that if this proceeds, there would be a condition that they need the EPA approval, I assume would be required. If they're in a wellhead protection area, we would condition that they have approval, right?
Is
Through the
it-
chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim. I
Janine,
don't
are
think
you
any,
referring to the construction general permit or?
No, I see the purple line that goes across that they're in a wellhead protection area. So doesn't that require EPA approval? To do construction in a wellhead protection area, I thought.
Yeah, I'm just aware of the EPA administering the construction general permit, which gets triggered for over an area of disturbance.
Okay,
which
so
this
we'll see
project
it
would
anyway.
qualify for. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the commission at this point? Any questions or comments from the audience? Go ahead and raise your hands. Okay. See anyone? Okay, if I can get a motion to continue the hearing until August 8th, please.
So moved.
And a second,
Second.
and we'll do the roll call. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
All right.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay, thank you, Nick.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, Clarici 8 Clinton Street. This is a continuation of a notice of intent to replace the septic system. Do we have the applicant on the call?
Yes, Karen Skinnick-Catroni representing the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening. So we were present at, would you like me to share my screen?
Sure, that'd be wonderful.
Oops. Oops.
I've also got the plans up if it's helpful.
Oh, can you see my screen now or?
No.
Oh, okay. If you have the plans up, I will. Oh, so I'm not allowed to share here.
Yeah, you should be able to, but Kim, go ahead. You can, if you can bring it up, please.
Thank you. So we were present at the last meeting and the commission had requested several changes to the plan, which we have shown. These changes include language, labeling the fence as immovable, a permanent immovable barrier. The areas of invasive species removal have been shown. That's in the rear of the lot. Plants and seed mix are shown that will be placed in those areas. And an invasive plant removal plan has been sent to Kimberly.
Okay. Okay. So Kim,
So we did also, I'm sorry, place erosion control currently in the back because there was some soil to be removed. And I submitted a waiver for work within the 25 feet, which would include this invasive removal and the removal of that soil.
got it. Okay. So Kim, did the invasive management plan and PIBs look okay to you?
Yes, they did. So this is the split rail fence. That's the PIB. I do note that the management plan proposed a kind of cut and paint system with an herbicide. So just for the commission to be aware, I do think it's appropriate in this case because Japanese knotweed, I think, necessitates it, the use of chemicals. That being said, one thing that I noticed in the plan was a three-year management plan. So basically 3 years of invasives management, and then once a level of control was achieved, seeding and planting. So that seeding and planting restoration that we had discussed wouldn't occur for 3 growing seasons. Am I correct, Ms. Catron?
So what we would probably do is remove it all. First, do it in 3 phases, but we could plant, and that would the cut and dab would be used then. After that, we would use pulling, so we could start the planting after probably the second season. If you'd like me to be more detailed in the plan with that, I can.
I'm just trying to think about what's going to be practicable for the homeowner as well. Or like, I'm not sure if this particular parcel is going to be changing hands soon, just to make something that, can actually make sure that it's reasonable to actually get done. That's all.
Well, if we went 3 years without planting, we'd definitely get the invasives back.
I guess, to Kim's point, if this changes hands in a year, is the new homeowner going to, know what's required and what they need to do? I guess is Kim's point.
Well, if you'd like us to do it in one phase, we can do that and see how it works.
I think that might make more sense, right, Kim?
I think 3 years of control is probably would result in a better outcome, but what is the probability of it actually occurring, the planting after 3 years?
I can revise the invasive management plan if you'd like.
So it's trade-offs. It's up to the commission how they want to, how you guys want to.
Yeah, I'll open up to the other members, on what your thoughts are.
What would Ed say?
Ed would say, manage it for the rest of your life.
In perpetuity. Yeah, I think a more condensed schedule, seems to make sense. Yeah, I just don't think a 3-year plan is really practicable, to Ken's point. It's kind of my thoughts.
I can revise the invasive management plan. My intention.
What was that, Melissa? Sorry.
No, I didn't have anything.
Oh, so Karen, can we condense it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then, Kim, can we vote on this, subject to you and Karen agreeing to, a revised kind of schedule for the management of the invasive plants?
Sure, yeah, and I can also add that as a condition.
Okay. Is there questions or comments from the audience before we vote? I don't see any hands. Okay, if I can get a motion to close and approve the notice of intent for 8 Clinton Street with the condition noted on the invasives.
I'll make that motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
And we'll do the roll call vote. And sorry, just to add to that motion to have Kim sign on behalf of the members present. And we'll do the roll call. Melissa?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay.
Thank you, girl.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You also.
Thank you.
Through the chair, you saw my finger on that unmute button, didn't you?
I did. Okay. Laborers Training Trust Fund, 37 East Street. This is a notice of intent continuation for the alternative gas line alignment.
Vito Colonna with Cornerstone Engineering.
Hey, Vito. Good evening.
Good evening. Just representing the applicant. So I don't know if Kim wants to start off anything. I'll just get right into it.
Yeah, why don't you jump right into it and give us an update,
Okay.
please?
Sure. Let me just share my screen.
We haven't
Okay.
received the DEP file number for this one yet.
Yeah, no, we haven't received the file number, so I'm assuming we have to continue anyway. But we figured we'd go through all the review from Lucas Environmental and just update you where we are right now. So just a brief overview. This was just the relocation. As you know, there was the previous applications in order that brought it in off Clinton Street and routed it through into the main center of the campus. The current proposal would bring it down Maple Avenue, route through the upland areas. This is near their recently installed well, and then down into the campus area down in here. So that area down in the campus essentially remains the same as previously looked at under the separate applications. It's mainly just this route up here that's changed, and that's all outside the buffer zones. I'll just scroll down to this is the routing off of Maple Ave. So it comes up, kind of comes through and around and down into the campus. This is down to that new training building, the crane building down in there. And then this down in the campus area, it's just exactly the same as it was previously. All the gas lines are within the existing gravel ways or paved travel ways. So it's all within previously disturbed areas. There's no new riverfront disturbance per se. There's no new tree clearing or vegetative clearing required for the gas line installation. So we did get the comments from Lucas, I think maybe a week ago or so. We just responded today. So obviously don't expect, you have really looked at the responses or anything, but we can kind of go through those just to get an idea of how we responded and catch up after the next meeting when hopefully we get our DEP number. So one of the comments was related to a potential vernal pool that is out in, it was noted it's in wetland C. So this is wetland series C out here. And while we are outside the 125-foot buffer to a vernal pool, it was requested that we show that 125-foot buffer and then just note that, no disturbance be within that area, just to reiterate that to the contractors and whoever's out there doing the work, that they aren't allowed to expand their work and encroach into those, that potential vernal pool buffer. We also added a note on the other buffer zones, also just explicitly telling the contractor doing the work that, there is a 100-foot buffer fairly close to the work, and don't, expand your work or encroach into that zone. Just to be careful out there that there is nearby resource areas. Let's see. There was another question from Lucas Environmental about the routing up on Maple Ave, just because the notice of intent focused on the campus itself. And actually I'll scroll up a little bit just so we can kind of see over here. So it does come up and goes down Maple Ave and then connects to the gas main out in Front Street. And we didn't delineate any wetlands out in Maple, and we probably should confirm that. It was a comment from Lucas that they were going to maybe take a look at that too. They hadn't yet, but we could do that prior to the next meeting, just confirm that there are no wetlands out within 100 feet of this gas line running down Maple Ave. If it were, then, would rather get that involved in this NOI rather than file another NOI, but would come across our bridge, if it comes to it, if there are wetlands out there. I didn't see any on the GIS, but we'll deal with that if it happens between now and the next meeting to deal with that.
All right.
There was just some notations on the disturbance areas. Just noting that one comment was just noting that, this project has far less disturbance within the buffer zone. It goes from 23,000 to 12,000 versus the previous proposal. The next comment was related to disturbances within the riverfront area. And this is probably on me for calculating it a little bit different. The actual work is exactly the same, but I reported different numbers. And it was the way that we made the assumptions on what disturbance would be made during a trench excavation. During the initial one, it was just assumed that we were disturbing the trench itself. And in this one, I probably should have done it the same way, but I assumed that there would be the trench excavation plus stockpiling next to it. So I had reported a larger number for riverfront disturbance, when in fact it's actually the same work. It's just a matter of what you would assume as the limit of work would be. It's a linear project, and I think on this one I assumed a 10-foot wide swath rather than just the narrow trench. But in either case, it is within existing gravel and paved ways, and it is the same work as proposed. We aren't really expanding the work. It's just how we're reporting it on that comment. That was number 5 in the letter.
Okay.
And then let's see. Number 6 was related to providing some more documentation on the alternative analysis. I did provide just the sketches and the summary of the alternative analysis. I did get the email back from Kim. I didn't get to respond to it, but she was asking that we provide basically all the documentation from the previous file. Kind of just resubmit everything just for the record. So we'll have to compile all that back together and get a paper file back to you, of everything that was submitted in the last one, just so it's all follows with this filing right here. Number 7 was a technical note on my part. I had Clinton Street still in one of the lines rather than Maple. We corrected that. 8, we provided the copies of the fee checks earlier today. 9 was related to coloring the plans on the upcoming submission. We'll do that for the next one. Number 10, just to add the erosion control detail. So we put that onto the plan. Make sure the detail was on there rather than just in a narrative form. And then the last one was just about closing out the old order prior to the start of construction if this one were to get approved. So we want to clean off that old order, however that may get done, whether it's through a withdrawal through DEP or how that gets done. But we'll figure out how that process is going to work before we start construction if this one were to get approved. And the last one's just having a DEP number, which hopefully we have. We've been in contact with them. We're trying to get that straightened out.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Kim, Joe, did you have anything to add?
This is Joe. Yeah, I think that pretty much covered my comments pretty well. Just add that I did, look along the proposed path through the woods for any resource areas. I didn't see anything within 100 feet. And also, I did get a chance to go back and do a quick look down Maple Ave, just from the street, looking into the yards of the houses, essentially along the street, and did not see any apparent wetlands along Maple Ave. The closest I saw was maybe just beyond 100 feet from the end of Maple Ave at the junction. I'm not sure what street that is. I have to look at the plan, but
yeah, it's on Front Street.
Front Street, yes. So near the intersection of Maple and Front Street, there's a wetland across Front Street, maybe in the range of 100 to 125 feet from that intersection.
Okay. Okay.
But as far as my other comments, I thought they were addressed pretty well today.
Okay, great. Thank you. Questions or comments from the commission? Questions or comments from the audience? And just raise your hand. I don't see anyone. Okay, so we'll continue this out, Vito, to the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have the DEP file number, and we'll have those other outstanding items addressed at that point. So if I can get a motion to continue the hearing until August 8th, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Yeah, I'll second it.
And we'll do the roll call. Melissa.
Aye.
Janine.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Ted.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep, and we also have the Vito, don't go too far. So we also have the Labor Training Trust Fund, 37 East Street, request for an amendment to the order of conditions for the fire protection line.
Okay, so this one, Vito Colon with Cornerstone, just for the record. And then, so for this one, this was the modification request. I think Kim has it up on the screen there.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're looking to move that fire pump based on the rock and the ledge found in the other location to the other side of the pond. I think last time there was some discussion on, which she has on the screen here, of that the restoration area or the mitigation area, it was supposed to be planted up in the 200-foot riverfront area. And it was just discussed last time that there had been a structure here, and it would basically offset, this isn't going to be proposed anymore. That would basically offset that small intrusion into the restoration area. So we'd roughly double the size. So that would just kind of offset those two items. Then we did get the review from Lucas on this. There was just a few items just for more for clarification. Item 3 just indicate how the area would be restored once they put in I think he was talking about the fire protection line and the gate valve and everything for the hydrant. So all this would get restored just as in what they're doing for the workout in the other part of the site. It would get planted up with that native meadow mix and then get restored to like that field condition basically after the work is completed. The hydrant itself is just on the fringe of it, just on the edge of it. So that would be outside that meadow area. But all the work disturbance as far as putting in the gate valve and the line and everything would restore to that after the construction is complete. And then the last item was just to confirm the erosion control barrier would be the same as previously approved, and it would be the straw wattles with silt fence throughout the project.
Okay.
And those are the only two that were questions. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think that addresses the concerns that we had. Kim, Joe, any other comments or questions?
None from me.
I'm all set.
All right, questions or comments from commission members? Questions or comments from the public? And go ahead and raise your hand. I don't see anyone. Okay, if I can get a motion to close and approve the request for the amendment to the order of conditions.
I'll make that motion, Jeff.
For the fire protection line and for Kim to sign on behalf of the members present. Yes, Kim?
With signature, you got it.
Okay.
I jumped the gun, but I'll still make that motion.
All right, in a second, please.
Second.
And we'll do the roll call. Melissa?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Jeff is an aye. Okay, great. Thank you, Vito.
All right, thank you. Have a nice night.
Yep, you too. Okay, so moving back down to the work session items. Maspinock Woods LLC, 5 West Elm Street. This was a request for a certificate of compliance. I think this looked good, Kim, correct? They just needed to remove the silt fence.
Yeah, so there was a few small items. Lucas went out and did a review actually back in January of the site. And the applicant representatives responded in June, which is why it's coming back up again. There were a few small items that Lucas pointed out. So there was some minor erosion and there were some substitutions of some of the plantings. And yeah, there's still silt fence out there. So based on the responses from the engineer, the real erosion has been raked out and the area has been reseeded. I'm okay with the planting substitutions. And, you know, as part of the certificate of compliance, we could authorize and request the applicant remove the remaining silt fence.
Okay. Questions or comments from commission? Okay, if I can get a motion to issue the COC pending the removal of the silt fence, and have Kim sign on behalf of the members present.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And we'll do the roll call vote. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Jeff is an aye. Okay. Hopkinton Boy Scout Troop 1, 45 East Street. This is a dock construction and a request for a waiver of the fees. I think since it's a Boy Scout project, this is, we've waived them in the past. I don't think anyone would have a problem with that, but I'll open it up for discussion.
Through the chair,
Yes, Kim.
I just wanted to make the commission aware. So this one's a little bit unique because they're also requesting a waiver of Lucas Environmental fees. So
Right.
essentially, I would be conducting the review, which for the record, I do feel comfortable with. Normally, Boy Scout projects fall under exemptions. This one's a little bit more substantial. They will be using helical piles to support this dock into the pond. So like I said, it's something that I felt like should not be administrative, that I needed a request for determination of applicability. That being said, I don't feel like it's such a large application that I'm not capable of reviewing it if the commission feels comfortable with that. So.
Yep, I'm good with that, Kim. Anyone have any concern about waiving the fees or Kim reviewing it on behalf of the Scouts?
Nope.
Okay, if I can get a motion to waive the fee and have Kim review the file application.
I'll make that motion.
And the second.
Second.
All right, and we'll do the roll call. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right. And last but not least, public forum requests. I think we had a couple, Kim, from Ed.
Ed had a few, but Ed is not here. So I think maybe we should talk about them next time. The commission should be aware, we had a lot of rain this past weekend, and we had a number of sites that had some violations. So Mr. Petrosi's site in the location of the driveway had an issue with a blowout. He reached out to me and reported it himself, actually. And the trails, unfortunately, the new phase that they just opened up, phase 4 of their development, had a major violation as reported by Melissa and Jeff. Melissa and Jeff, thank you for being out there. I'm just trying to pull up some photos.
Which is very disappointing, Kim.
Yes. It is extremely disappointing, especially given that a week prior, on July 10th, I also issued the trails a notice of a violation when I noted a much smaller amount of sediment-laden water running off and into the wetlands. Luckily, that didn't make it to the reservoir. So the applicant and Mr. Peter Bemis should have been aware at that time that updates and changes needed to be made. And then he had a week to repair, in which that preparation did not occur. So I will also, I issued a notice of violation. I issued a cease and desist for any and all work besides work on the stormwater infrastructure and work to support erosion and sedimentation controls and site stabilization. And I will also prepare a fine memo for them. And they're on the schedule for the August 8th meeting for a violations and fine hearing.
All right.
Did the major one impact Ashland?
Yep.
Yeah. So Kim, you were going to encourage Ashland to also reach out to the trails about the violation, right?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would also encourage Ashland, to essentially, if they felt it necessary, to seek their own damages.
Right. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yep. Yep.
Seeing
Yes,
those pictures, Kim, I'm really glad all that furniture got pulled out of the culvert.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone probably feels the same way I do. Is like, I'm just beside myself. Like, how can this happen again after everything that we've been through with these folks? But,
Yeah, I just had a question on the trails. Did they provide us with a phasing plan or anything with clearing?
So this is the phasing plan. It's just that their phases are
It's
huge.
Sufficient. Yeah.
Yeah, and not sufficient. And, when they had their pre-construction meeting, we talked about don't open everything all up at once again. And, I was assured, we're not even going to open the buffer zone, so it won't be an issue. That didn't pan out.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there was any phasing followed.
No, none whatsoever. And I've had the conversations with Peter, like, you need structural BMPs, having a limit of work, sedimentation and erosion, and, some site stable erosion control with mulch and riprap is not going to cover it based on the amount of land area that is now open. You need structural BMPs. And I know.
So at the next meeting, obviously Peter Bemis will be there. I don't remember the name of the developer, but we did request that he attend all meetings, and according to Mr. Bemis, if I remember correctly, he understood that to be just the meetings that dealt with whatever the issues were at the time. I assume that fellow will be at the meeting next August, 8th, is it?
Yep, I've reached out to him directly. I have not heard back. So I'll keep trying to reach out to him to let him know that I said I strongly encourage your participation.
This is unreal, these photos.
essentially the same thing that happened, a little over a year ago.
It looks more dramatic to me.
It was a huge rain event and I was there like right at the the peak, but no excuses.
Kim, was that one running directly into the reservoir a couple photos ago?
This goes directly into the reservoir.
Yeah, that's the picture. Is that the reservoir and a bunch of turbid, silted water running into it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we can't, I don't think with the excuse is unusual rain event anymore. It's not unusual when they happen every other week.
And when Kim gives them a week advance notice, hey, we're having a rain event this weekend, you have 5 days to get your act together, and they don't,
Yeah.
They wait until the day before. So anyways, okay, I guess we'll talk about it more on the 8th. But yeah, it's ridiculous.
How did Turkey Ridge do? I didn't go over there.
So we weren't over there on Sunday, but we went over on Monday and we didn't see any evidence of sedimentation. They had some minor rill erosion, but it seems to have been caught by the stormwater that's in place. There's definitely some site practices over there that could use a little bit of tightening, but the stormwater infrastructure is doing them a lot of favors. So
yep, and it's
who knows, it works.
Yeah.
When you install it, it works.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
installing it before you have a violation.
I was gonna say, we should give them a kudos
Yeah.
after the weekend.
Okay. Anything else, Kim?
That's it.
Right.
I was just gonna offer just a touch more information on the Petrosi property.
Yes.
And I know Kim knows it. Again, to remind everyone, I live 100 steps from the property, so I walk by it a lot. On that driveway, I think we left it with, he was to put down some mats so that the seed would hold and then stop the rain. Those mats never went down. I probably went by every other day and there were never any mats on that loose dirt where he says the seed can't take hold. So just to let folks know, when that discussion comes up about building a wall there instead of seeding it, the recent event should have no bearing on that discussion because he didn't do what he said he was going to do, which was try a different, better way to grow grass. He just ignored it. So I just thought I'd throw that in as well. And the driveway is oh, there you go. The driveway is crumbling. And it's going to need to be repaved again, at least repaired in parts. You can see some of the crumbling there.
Mm-hmm.
But there were no mats laid down to help the seed take hold.
Okay. Well, thank you for keeping an
Just
eye
thought
on
I'd
it.
let you know.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. It's good to know. Okay. Kim, anything else?
Well, I mean, honestly, like, how do I top that? Can it get any worse? Like, what can I even say after this?
Yeah,
How's
crazy.
the baby? Where's the baby picture?
There we go.
We need to have.
Hey, there you go.
That's
That's
better.
awesome.
He's
Was
good.
that in
He's
Rhode
good.
Island? Was that at
Yeah, we ended up going to one in Connecticut. Yeah.
the? Okay, yeah, yeah. We went to the one in Connecticut too.
Elizabeth Gardens in Hartford, West Hartford?
It's like a tulip place. It's like a
The wicked tulips.
yeah.
All tulips?
It is all
Tulips
tulips.
are on. Wow. Did you leave with a bunch of tulips?
Yes.
Yeah.
Legally,
They all died like 3 days later.
ones you were allowed to take.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
They don't
What
last
you
long.
enjoy?
Yeah. He started toddling around. So now we're in a mad dash to baby proof the house. So if anybody has like baby gates or any of that stuff, accepted.
Bubble wrap. Bubble wrap. Wrap them up
Just
in
wrap
bubble wrap.
him. Yeah.
It saves all that work of everything else. Just wrap him up and get him a football helmet.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And
a
I'll second. I'll second it.
And we'll do the roll call. Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, folks. Have a great evening. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Good night,
Thank you,
John. Good
Joe.
night, Kim. Good night, Anna.
See you guys.